Step inside the ominous corridors of the Winchester Mystery House, a labyrinth built to appease restless spirits. Your breath thins as the air cools, smelling of old varnish and rain trapped in wood. A draft slides around your ankles as if something crawled past unseen. Lamps pool weak amber on carved banisters, leaving corners to swallow their own shadows. Floorboards remember feet, they creak and answer in patient whispers. A door opens to a wall. A stair treads upward into a ceiling that refuses to yield. From somewhere behind the lath, a soft tap travels like a pulse, then stills. A spiderweb window, caught in moonlight, throws fractured silver on the floor, and dust hangs in that light like frozen ash. Handrails feel warm, then cold, then warm again, as though they carry absent hands. The house does not wait for you, it leads you. Every corridor angles away from where your instincts point. The skylights have no sky, only the crossed ribs of a higher roof. A bell, long silent, seems to remember how to tremble. Paint has a dry sweetness, cedar a wet breath. Nails share a language with the wind. As you turn into a narrow hallway, shallow risers climb in little breaths, and you suspect the geometry of this place listens more than it looks. Do you feel the timber recalculating you? She arrives small in stature and immense in fortune, black-clad and already bruised by absence. Annie's nursery stands empty. William coughs until his lungs surrender. Gunstocks and gilt scrollwork carry a name that feeds this country's hunger and her private ruin. Money refuses to comfort. It only offers tools and time. In New Haven, mirrors drape in crepe and hallways smell of lilies. She hears a suggestion, no, an instruction, wrapped in parlors where velvet muffles every voice. Go west, build without pause, keep hammer and saw busy so the dead find work to watch instead of a widow to claim. So she goes until the land flattens under orchards and fog, and a farmhouse waits beneath a sky wide enough to hold her silence. Behind the porch, foundations settle into soil that trembles once in a while, reminding everyone what dissolves. She hires crews with rough hands and clean respect. Nails arrive by the keg, glass by the crate, timber by the railcar. Sawdust gathers in her hem. At sundown, lanterns ignite and the mansion keeps breathing. At sunrise, plans shift, rooms vanish, a new wing sprouts, and old windows stare into blank walls. Night does not end work, it redirects it. She walks with a cane and a lamp through ribs of fresh framing, instructing a foreman to turn a doorway, lower a step, add a niche. Her voice barely rises, the men lean in to catch it. She never chases symmetry, she deflects pursuit. If grief is a pressure, she engineers a maze to spread it thin. The locals construct stories across fences. Inside, a rhythm steadies. Hammer, whisper, hammer. Visitors come with superstition packed under their shoes. They stand in a bright parlor and feel a cold thread run under their collars. Some report a breath on the back of the neck, wet like a sigh. Others hear humming in the upstairs gallery, the fragment of a lullaby that ends before the note resolves. Tour guides trace routes that double back on themselves like a cat's path through tall grass. A red door opens to nothing, and the black mouth beyond pulls at the eyes. Stairs rise with shallow steps, built for fragile joints, and when you climb them, the world tilts as if the house is swallowing lengths of distance at a peculiar rate. Glasswork becomes doctrine. Some windows stare at other windows, a reflection looking into another reflection until everything confesses how easily direction fails. There's a spider motif cut into a pane above the landing. It catches daylight and fractures it into angular silk. No map survives the afternoon. The house adds a wall where none was. Inside corridors, the smell of pitch and old wallpaper fights with a mineral damp. Quiet rooms hold the temperature of a glove recently removed. When the bell once rang at midnight, and again later in the night, people swore each chime stretched farther than the metal itself could, slipping under doors and along men's sleeves. Architectural tricks assist rumor. A staircase ends in a ceiling for a reason no one agrees upon. A closet hides a passage. The hearth in a guest room opens into another chamber's secret. The house refuses straight lines at crucial moments. Light from a high window drags slow across wainscoting carved with vines like time made visible. Some visitors feel a tug at their coat. One drops a pencil and hears it clatter somewhere it should not reach. In an empty room, someone catches a whiff of roses where no flowers live. You do not need to see a figure. The place graduates touch, sound, and imbalance into their own apparition. When midnight approaches, lamps extinguish room by room until only a private chamber glows. The door closes, and behind it she sits at a small table with a board, a plan, a candle, and a bell. Dark fabric drinks the light. Her fingers rest on the planchette as if it were the shoulder of someone she trusts. She is not theatrical. She is precise. The silence in this room holds a different pressure, like being underwater. Voices, if they exist, have rules here. She breathes past the ache in her chest and waits until the window pane ticks with cooling. She keeps paper open as though listening is a form of drawing. The candle trembles. She writes a number, then crosses it out. The house beyond the door seems to lean in, as if it could press its ear to her table. Hooks on a wall count out in a sequence favored by her grief. The bell's mouth barely quivers, and yet the air registers its intent. She murmurs to names she will not speak to the living, asking for orientation. The dead do not answer the way a person answers. They press. They make suggestion feel like pressure on the skin. Toward morning, she emerges with instructions that change the day. A stair must switch back in a tight spine. A window must open into a closet. A hallway must refuse to go where hallways go. Carpenters collect fresh orders like code. They begin again, measure, cut, sand, fit, adjust. The bell will sound again, later, telling whatever gathered that the session has ended. In the yard, fog lifts off the orchard. In the courtyards, cats thread through sawhorses. All of it proceeds with a composure that suggests ritual. She does not seek permission from anyone alive. She cultivates a different counsel. Time tarnishes gossip into legend, and legend calcifies into tour spiels. Yet something stubborn sits under the costume. Skeptics walk these hallways and find only engineering designed by someone who loved complication. Believers collect goose flesh like badges. The truth may live somewhere in the weight of her lace at the wrist and the callus along a carpenter's thumb. Victorian America made a business of talking to the dead. Parlors turned into sanctuaries for taps and knocks. She embraced that tide because absence left her the choices: collapse, endurance, invention. She selected all three and raised buildings out of them. Consider the earthquake that split plaster and skewed doors from their frames, how she sealed rooms as if entombing decisions. Consider isolation performed as architecture, 90-odd rooms, some unusable by design, chimneys that do not root to fire, stairs that spare tired knees but bewilder direction. Accounts of a woman ruled by fear ignore the intelligence it takes to orchestrate confusion so exactly. Accounts of pure hoax disregard the temperature shift that lives in certain corners when no window is open and no shade of cloud covers the sun. Some say she hid from vengeance carried by the rifles her family manufactured. Others say she worked like a mathematician of sorrow, redistributing force until it no longer shattered. Maybe the house is nothing more than wood, glass, metal, air, and story. Maybe it is a sympathetic machine tuned to breath. When you stand alone on a landing that faces a blank wall, the quiet feels as heavy as a hand on your shoulder. When you try a locked door, the keyholes seem to inhale. Before you decide what haunts these rooms, ask the old nails what they've heard. Would you be certain they stay silent when the lights go out?